Come on in. We're excited. We're going to start at the top of the hour.
Looks like we have Pensacola coming in at 73 degrees.
Nice.
I will think those warm thoughts right now because we're at 1 degree Fahrenheit, 17 degrees below 0 Celsius.
If you are
so excited,
drop in where you are coming to us from and what temperature it is. Looks like we now have Crawfordsville, Indiana, and Calvert County, Maryland, 56 in Maryland.
All right.
Ranger Mark, I haven't seen anybody as cold as it is there in Minnesota.
It is cold here. Yep. Definitely.
But these Minnesotans are hardy breed. They walked out in this morning and thought and it is beautiful, but it is extremely cold, but they've been colder before.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. Yeah. I liken it to different planets in the winter.
Just logged in.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Oh, Atlanta, Georgia's coming in there. New Lenox, Illinois is joining us.
Illinois is in the house.
Welcome, welcome.
We have Northern California joining us as well.
Hey, Northern California.
All right.
Nice. Glad you're here. We're expecting a blizzard this afternoon, a little south of here. 17 to 26 inches was the last broadcast or forecast for that. So we are waiting for that to come, and we're going to try to get out of here. We're going to leave them in the cold, but we're going to try to get out this evening. But we're glad you're here, everyone. We're actually going to start at the top of the hour.
We have 2 Minnesota groups here, one in Waite Park and one in, I believe it's Chaska, Minnesota.
Chaska, Minnesota? Chaska, Minnesota.
Chaska, okay.
My Minnesotans are correcting me on these beautiful names in Minnesota. Welcome to our Minnesota folks. You're looking at us and probably think I'm overdressed.
It's Central Pennsylvania. Oh, Miami Springs, Florida, 82
Miami,
degrees.
Florida. Nice.
Excellent.
So we're actually standing on the lake, but I'm standing on car mats right now. We thought that the car mats might insulate our feet just a little bit because my toes are frozen and burning, which I don't think is a great combination, but doing it for you kids. We're here for you.
As long as you feel something, you're good.
I do feel something, Ranger Mark. So
Good.
that's very cool.
That's a good thing.
Albuquerque, New Mexico just joined us.
Albuquerque. We've had Albuquerque in the house every Zoom for the last 2.5 years. Tell me who the name of that teacher is. I think I know.
Mrs. Sandoval.
Miss Sandoval. Miss Sandoval, as you know, we're coming to see you this fall. You guys have won one of the spots for Crossing America Live. So we're excited to be able to come and see you in the fall.
Yay, that's exciting.
That's great.
Rockford,
Yes.
Minnesota.
Oh, Rockford, Minnesota. Nice. Well, we are so glad that you're here today. And we're not in our studio, as you can probably tell. We are actually on location. This is Dr. Drizzle, and we are here with Crossing America Live. We want to thank the National Park Foundation for their collaboration in all of our work with Crossing America. But today, our partners have grown even more because we are here with the Voyageurs Conservancy, and we're here with Voyageurs National Park. We have fallen in love with this place, kids. We have been here in September when it was a little chilly. We're here today where it is extremely cold. And we will be here this summer with teachers from around the country in August. So we're sort of testing out all of the seasons here, and we are so glad to be here. We have multiple hosts today online. So kids, as always, we want to make sure we're on our best Zoom behavior. We'll ask that you keep your microphones muted until we have time to share. But we're just really excited to be here, and we're going to go ahead and get started if that's okay with you. So we're going to go to our slides. The picture you see here is actually us in August, where we look a little bit warmer, but this is episode number, let's see, 17, Voyageurs National Park. But let me tell you a little mistake that Dr. Drizzle has made. So you're going to notice this. I'm hoping you notice this because you're smarter than I am right now. We have the map mixed up. So you may notice that Minnesota has moved. And that has really not happened. We haven't had any shifting yet of the continent, but we'll fix that on the next way around. We want to, again, thank you for being here today. A special thanks to Karen Lee and Ruby Koch and Tracy Ritchie of the National Park Foundation for their continued support of our work. If you're sharing out on social media today, as always, you can use the hashtag Crossing America. You can use the hashtag Expeditions in Education. If you are going to be tagging anybody at the national park, you can find them on Instagram. Mark is actually the Instagram king over here at Voyageurs NPS. And then if we are tagging the Conservancy, we want to make sure we're tagging Voyageurs Conservancy. So do that for us today so we can keep moving. As you can see here, we are cold and we are doing some amazing things out here today. It looks like my screen has changed just a moment. So we're going to take a moment. We will tell you this was our first time live streaming in temperatures below freezing. So our computers are a little cold out here. Our cameras are a little cold, but don't worry. If something were to happen today and we were to lose you, Leanne Simmerman, who is a teacher friend of ours from Tennessee, will be taking over. But right now, I think we're still good. Can I get a thumbs up or something? What's happening on our audio technical side there? We good?
It's working perfect.
Perfect. So on Sunday night, Voyageurs Conservancy and the Voyageurs National Park hosted a snowshoe walk. And they took about 14 families out snowshoeing about 2 hours. And if you look at these pictures here, these are the actual photos of what they saw when they looked up. And isn't that absolutely beautiful? For some of us that live in the city, when we look up at night, we don't see all of that because we see a lot of lights outside that are pointed up. And basically that's what we're going to be talking about today. We also had some fun time yesterday when we went ice fishing. As you know, Dr. Drizzle loves to fish. Yesterday was our first attempt at ice fishing. I also have on some snowshoes there. So I'm going to give you this photo here. And yes, we did have a little bit of luck with our fishing. One of the big fish here is called the walleye. And let me tell you, Ranger Mark, they were delicious. We had that last night, and we actually got to eat one of Moss's walleyes, which was really exciting.
Very tasty.
Very, very tasty. There we go. So as we're talking today, make sure that you've got your pencil and your paper or your Crossing America journal out so you can take some really cool notes. And we want to sort of see, and again, this is our map. It's all messed up. So we're in Minnesota. I promise you, we are in Minnesota today. And we're going to now meet some of our rangers, which is really exciting. So let's go ahead and introduce people here. So again, this is Ranger Mark Miller. He is a ranger here at Voyageurs National Park. And we have Moss, who is one of our fellows. So let's just start with Moss for a second. Moss, can you tell us what you actually do here besides look really cool in a hat?
Yeah, got good hats on. I am Moss, and I'm a field fellow here with the Voyageurs Conservancy. What I get to do is develop curriculum and lessons, and also take people out on snowshoe hikes and explore this national park myself and with other people.
Now, you've done quite a lot of traveling in your lifetime. I think you've been in places like Bulgaria.
Sure have.
And give us a few places that you've touched base with in the last few years.
Oh, wow. I was in Bulgaria and Romania and Albania and Greece. all sorts of places. And when I was traveling to these new countries and new places, I often was comparing it to my home, which is Minnesota. And it really helped me to appreciate what is unique about every place. And being on a frozen lake in Minnesota feels very much like home to me.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about this frozen lake in just a moment. And I just noticed that I have stepped off my car mats. So I'm going to come back on those to keep my toes warm. But Ranger Mark, now the kids are going to recognize you because they've seen you before. So just
Sure.
real quickly, tell us how long you've been here at Voyageurs.
I've been at Voyageurs for just about 1 year, but I think of Voyageurs National Park as my home park because I grew up in Minnesota and went camping, canoe camping and things when I was just a young boy. So it's a homecoming for me to be here at Voyageurs National Park once again.
Well, we are glad to be here. Let's go ahead and just address the elephant in the room. We're on ice. We're on a
Sweet.
frozen lake. Now, we came out on Sunday just so I could get used to it because I'm having some healthy anxiety about this. But right here where we're standing in the summertime, this is water. And there's people out here doing water sports. But tell us
That's correct.
how much ice we're standing on now. And can you alleviate my fears just one more time?
Most certainly. We are on approximately 3 feet of ice thickness right now, which is more than enough to support, I'm counting 4 cars right now, right out in front of us. But there's also an ice road where we've got pickup trucks going back and forth to their ice fishing shacks and all kinds of things on this plowed ice road. So plenty of thickness to support a lot of weight.
Well, that's very heartening. Like I feel better about that. I also noticed we had some really loud sounds out here earlier, and that scared me a little bit, but that's an okay thing too, right?
It is, yeah. When you hear cracks and pops and booms and things like that, it's all part of the experience. It's pressure changes basically happening with the ice as temperatures get colder at night and warm up a little bit in the daytime. You'll hear some of those pressure changes affecting the ice and producing those sounds. But it's one of those beautiful sounds that makes up part of the experience.
I'm learning to like it a little bit better than I did when we first got here. Now, I don't know who wants to answer this one, but there's fish underneath us.
Oh, yes.
Obviously, I didn't find many of them yesterday, a few, but what's happening with them? Are they safe?
Oh, I know this one. I used to be worried about fish when I was younger too. I knew that the lakes that were close to me would freeze and often freeze really thick. I didn't know what would happen to the fish and the turtles and the frogs that often lived in these spaces, but I learned that the fish are just fine. They go deeper under the water and they're able to rest a little bit in the winter, kind of like we do, but they still swim around. We saw them swimming a little bit yesterday while we were fishing, but they are perfectly safe. They just go under the water and hang out until the ice melts.
Well, let's talk about this ice fishing that we did yesterday. So we were actually in an ice hut. So you would think that you would just be sitting out on a stool. And I bet some people that are very hardy do that, but we were actually in a little ice hut and there were holes dug with an auger into the ground and we just dropped our poles in there. So that was pretty exciting. This is something that Minnesotans do though. Like this is a livelihood. This is the way they get some of their food. Is that correct?
Definitely. Yeah. It's ice fishing is a pastime for a lot of Minnesotans and people that live in the North Woods, the upper Midwest. Also snowmobiling, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing. There's all kinds of winter activities that you can do here in Voyageurs National Park and across this whole part of the country.
Well, are there any other animals? I saw that earlier this morning, you guys were gathered over there looking at tracks. What do we think we found here?
We looked at these tracks and it looked kind of like maybe a cat paw print or a dog paw print, but we noticed they were pretty small. We thought maybe it could be a wolf or a coyote, but it wasn't big enough for that. So we think it might have been a fox.
Nice, nice. Now,
Red fox.
are we going to worry about any animals coming upon us right now?
We don't have to worry about that today. Maybe a few snowmobilers on this trail behind us, but they're going to stick on the groomed snowmobile trails. If we're fortunate, who knows? We might see some gray wolves running along the shoreline. That's always a possibility. What we have directly behind us is the Cavitogama Peninsula, which is the core of the wilderness area, if you will, of Voyageurs National Park. So we might be fortunate and see some wolves running behind us, but they won't bother us today.
I'm going to ask that you think about some words that you've just heard about. So let's go back to me for just a minute, Steve. Think about some things you've already seen today and heard about. And I want you to start jotting some of those things down, like tracks and wolves and bears and cats and dogs and fox and fish and maybe the walleye. So let's make a list of some things that we have heard about today. Maybe the loud cracks that you've heard, maybe the ice fishing piece. Maybe Dr. Drizzle caught a really big fish. Maybe you saw a picture of it. I can't, deny that I'm sitting there holding that very large walleye. But let's make a list of those things and just have those in our journal. But I really want to talk about something special here at Voyageurs National Park. This is a dark sky, an international dark sky park. Now, we've talked about this a little bit in our original Crossing America video, but can you tell us a little bit more about this dark sky, even though we're out here in this beautiful blue sky right now?
Certainly. Voyageurs National Park is certified with the International Dark Sky Association. And what that means is that we've gone through a lot of different steps to basically reduce light pollution and preserve our night skies. It is an amazing natural resource when we simply look up into the cosmos above us and see the constellations and the Milky Way. And in places like Voyageurs National Park and nearby Boundary Waters, Canoe Area Wilderness, and other dark places on the planet, it is just an amazing experience to see so vividly the dark skies above us and the things we can learn from it, the stories that we can learn, not only from our lived experience, but from those that have lived here on this planet before us, the indigenous peoples of the world. And it's just a wonderful resource here at Voyageurs that we're working hard to continue to preserve and protect in the ongoing years to come.
Well, Moss, you had said the other night on your snowshoeing trip that just being able to look up at the stars was very calming for your spirit.
It was.
And how does it make you feel when you're out here in nature, one with nature, if you will, and can look up at those beautiful stars?
Yeah, it is really a magical experience. And whether I'm out in a nighttime experience, being able to see the stars, or in the day, being able to connect to the quiet and all of the trees that are around me, I find a certain level of peacefulness and spaciousness. It feels like I am able to remember that I'm a part of nature and that nature is a part of me. Especially when it's a dark sky experience, you can look up and remember that there is so much in this universe. And it's really amazing to be reminded just by looking up into the sky.
Well, we know that our students have had an opportunity to watch our Crossing America video with Voyageurs, and we know that you've looked at the challenge. So as we tie this challenge to the UN Sustainability Goals, we're using goal number 3, which is good health and well-being, and also goal number 11, which is sustainable cities and communities. We know that our dark sky ranger, Jesse, who's actually coming in from Northern California today, and Ranger Mark and other people here at the park worked very hard to make sure that the lights that were on outside of the buildings shone down instead of up. And they were, they looked at the lights that stayed on in buildings around here, and they had to make some adjustments. So we know that you guys have also come up with some amazing ideas about how to be an ambassador for Voyageurs National Park. We suggested slogans or t-shirt designs. We also suggested ways that you could talk to your community about reducing light pollution. So Leanne, we are coming to that time again where we want to know what kids have and what ideas they have. Now, kids, it's going to be a little bit different this time. Hang on just a moment. 2. So Leanne, can you unmute yourself for a moment and just tell me if you are ready to start introducing me to some students?
I am. I'm waiting for some hands to be waved or raised, and we will listen to ideas.
So kids, they can be ideas that you have to make Voyageurs even a better dark sky park, or it can be ideas that you may want to have that you want to use in your own community to make the dark side or dark skies more accessible to everyone. Or it could be just another question you have for Ranger Mark or Moss. So I will stop talking for a minute, Lynn, and let you give me someone.
All right, I'm looking at my screen. I'm not seeing any hands raised right now. So does anyone have anything you would like to share or questions? Let's see, Miss Rushing, it looks like there's someone raising your hand. Vera Wiley. Go ahead and unmute Vera and share with Dr. Drizzle.
This is Mrs. Neal, and I have a student here that suggested that we make sure we turn our lights off at night to help reduce the light pollution in our community so we can better see our stars.
I love that. And I think that that would be a great idea for that student's home. And then even more, maybe starting an initiative in your neighborhood that says after a certain time at night that all front porch lights go off. Even maybe have one day a week where you have them all turned off and you all step outside on your front porch and just look up and see if you've made a difference. Does that sound like something that would work, Mark?
That would be wonderful. Yeah, getting your family, your friends to buy in, so to speak, to the idea of reducing light pollution. You know, I heard it said once that to reduce light pollution and to help protect and preserve our night skies, that we should be thinking about lighting less and only where and when we need to. So, and to do so with less bright lights. And so those are some ideas, the when and the where do we use lights? Be thinking about those things. And that can play out in more detail in a lot of different ways, of course.
Right. And so we walk down city streets at night, we notice that there's a lot of lights out on light poles, but they sometimes don't light what we need, which is the sidewalk, right? We need those lights to be able to see, to walk, but they don't need to be pointing up in the air. So I think this student's idea about starting with one thing, turning off their front porch light at a certain time is a great idea. Thanks for sharing that.
All right, next up we have Miss Seelock's room and then Miss Shalini's room. You're on deck.
Good morning from Illinois. I have Eve here, and Eve has an idea.
All right, Eve.
Change your lights to a darker color or a warmer yellow-ish, maybe. Lower the
Lumens.
yeah.
The lumens.
Yeah,
Thank
so actually the snowshoeing event the other night, when they were asking people to come and ask them what they needed to bring, they said a headlamp, but only have it on red. Now, Moss, can you tell us why we would want to turn a headlight on red at night? What does that do for us?
Yeah, so if you have ever been inside in a really bright place and then gone outside, sometimes it takes your eyes a little bit of time to adjust to the darkness. And when you have a red light, it actually helps your eyes stay adjusted to the darkness. If you have a bright white light, it actually reduces or it resets your eyes back to thinking that they need to be working really hard to process all of this extra light. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes for your eyes to adjust to the darkness so you have much better night vision. And I heard once that, well, you know, pirates used to wear an eye patch over one eye. I heard that one of the reasons they did that is because they would be up on the deck walking around, and then sometimes they needed to go below deck where it was very dark, and they would take off their eye patch and put it on the other eye, and one of their eyes would be adjusted for the darkness underneath the deck, and the other eye would be ready to go back up to the brightness. So it makes a big difference having exposure to light or darkness.
And that might be something that would even help people that have low vision problems, that you change light bulbs out so that they're not so bright. I know that in some classrooms, teachers will change their lights to a dimmer hue, or even put tissue paper over their lights so things are not so bright. So thanks from Illinois. That was a great suggestion. Next.
We have Miss Shalini's class and then Ms. Homan's class. You're on deck.
Hi there. We're also coming to you from Illinois, and I have Brady and Fiona here. Brady has a quick idea of ways to reduce light pollution, and Fiona has a slogan she'd like to share.
Nice.
So my first idea is to set a timer of when you need to like turn off the lights. And then my second idea is to like know when you have to turn off your lights and tell like your town, city, or village like when you need to turn off the lights.
Okay, great. And Fiona's got a quick slogan for you to throw in there.
Turn off the lights so the stars are so bright.
Turn off the light so the stars are still bright. Fiona, I love that. That's beautiful.
It's awesome.
And I also want to speak back to the first young lady's idea. You did two things really cool there. One is you decided that you would set a timer for your own personal use to know when to turn lights off. But then you did something else. You reached outside of yourself to say that you would share that with your community. And I think that's important. One idea is great, but when you bring other people in to share those ideas and to inform them to do the same thing, that's what we call a movement. And a movement can change the world. So we know it starts with one person, and then it can move. And then we could use that slogan to encourage a whole town. So why don't I give you this call to action? Why don't you do this in your classroom? See if you can get everyone in your classroom to maybe use this slogan and decide when they're going to turn their lights out. And then once everyone in your classroom does it and is feeling comfortable, then you can move to other parts of the community. Thanks for sharing that.
It's awesome.
All right, now we have Mrs. Homan's class and Miss Madsen, you're on deck.
Hello, everyone. We're from Central Pennsylvania, and I have a student who has a question for you. This is Riley.
So, how do you know where to stand on the ice if the snow is covering it?
So that is a great question. And I'm hoping that the answer is going to come from Ranger Mark, because he told me where to stand, and I'm trusting him because even though I swim, I don't want to take a swim today. So Ranger Mark, how do you come about knowing where we can stand? Did you just walk out here, or I bet there's some people behind the scenes that have helped you?
There certainly are. We've got a lot of great people that work for Voyageurs National Park, including our maintenance division employees and our law enforcement rangers as well. And they are continually every day during the winter coming out onto the ice. They're digging holes with augers. They're checking the thickness at different places, and they're making sure that places in particular like this plowed ice road that we're standing on Black Bay in the middle of Rainy Lake continues to stay thick and safe. Now, just the other day, we did start to see a little bit of slush come up through the top of the surface of the ice, and that had to do with some pressure changes and different water levels changing underneath that almost 3-foot thickness of ice. But just because you see that slush come up, it doesn't mean that the ice is getting really thin. There's still good ice underneath that slush, but you don't want to walk in that slushy ice, nor do you want to snowmobile or cross-country ski through that slushy ice and get your feet wet and so on. So there's different things to look for. You don't want to see some of that yellow slush anywhere. You want to stay on, if you can, that clear blue, just almost see-through ice, and that's going to be some of the best ice. Now, when snow covers it, you can't necessarily see the ice itself, but But we do those types of things to make sure it's a safe environment for people to come out here on the ice.
And we also make sure that people are using really good common sense and that they follow rules. So as you come onto this ice area, there's a sign that talks about the ice road, and it tells you, when you can come and when you can't. So we want to be really smart. If you notice behind me, there are some risen snow drifts. So I think we call those berms, is what we talked about. So that's something that I'm not going to go jump in right now, but that's also could be a hazard for our snowmobilers. So tell us about those berms and how we want to be safe out here.
Sure. Here at Voyageurs, we have actually about 110 miles of groomed snowmobile trails that we keep groomed throughout the wintertime. And we have stakes that we will drill into the ice along the safe route that we've established on these trails. And so if you're snowmobiling, you want to be sure to stay right along those stakes. And that's going to be the route, the path to take, and keep you away from some of these snow drifts and berms and ice ridges that sometimes can form in the snow. So those are the things, if you're going to be safe on a snowmobile or like I say, other modes of transportation like skiing, if you stay on those groomed trails designated for that activity, you're going to be safe.
That sounds great. What a great question. Thank you so much.
All right, next up we have Jamie Madsen, and then Oak Grove Elementary. You're on deck.
You're up. I'm Douglas from Minnesota, and I have a question. Should you try and avoid bright lights on tall buildings?
Oh, what a great question, Moss. This is a student from Minnesota that's talking about the lights that we sometimes see on tall buildings.
Oh, yeah.
So what is your idea about the lights on tall buildings?
Yeah, I see lights on tall buildings too. And what I've learned about those is that they're generally there to help anyone that's flying be able to see that there's a tall building there. Sometimes they're blinking or they're radio towers. I live in Duluth, Minnesota, and we have up on the hill in Duluth a lot of tall, I think, radio towers and cell phone towers that are blinking at night. But I've noticed that those lights are actually red too, which makes it a lot easier to not be affecting our ability to see the sky. But there are also tall buildings that do have really bright lights on them that maybe are not always necessary. It's an interesting question.
It is an interesting question. It's one of those about our human impact also. So one of my favorite holidays is Christmas. I love the winter time and I love all the lights. And although we love to see all the lights on the outside of homes, there might be an opportunity for us to have those lights still be festive, but there's a certain time at night when they go off also, instead of staying on all night and maybe using more electricity than we should be using. So a great question. I think I would do some research. If you're seeing some lights on buildings around you and you're not sure that they're actually for safety, maybe do some calling or some asking and say, hey, if those are just for show, could we turn those off, every other night or something so that I can see the dark sky? Great question. Thanks for asking.
All right, Oak Grove Elementary is up, and then Ms. Rushing, you're on deck.
My name is Luke from Georgia at Oak Grove Elementary. My name is Miles from Georgia, Oak Grove Elementary. I have a question about solar panels. Do you use solar panels?
Yeah, so I will speak to what I saw yesterday, and then I'll see if any other Minnesotans can speak to this. So yesterday in our ice fish hut, there were solar panels there, which is just a very smart choice for energy. We know that that's goal number 7 in the UN sustainability goals, to have clean energy, to think about things like solar and wind. Here in Minnesota, do we notice any solar panels up in homes or businesses around here?
There's some. There certainly is. There's definitely room for more. That is a good goal to have. The middle school that I went to had a big south-facing field full of solar panels, I remember, and that was pretty innovative back in the day. And we're seeing more and more as time progresses. That is a wonderful source of energy, to be sure. One of the challenges we have in Minnesota is in the wintertime, we only have, gosh, probably 9 hours of daylight in the middle of the winter. In the summertime, about 18 hours of daylight. So a big swing of difference, especially this far north, just 3 miles from the Canadian border. We're at a latitude of about 48.5 degrees. So the amount of daylight when we can collect solar energy is somewhat limited, depending on the seasons here this far north.
Moss, when you were traveling around to other countries, I'm assuming that some countries struggle with energy just like we do. Did you see any opportunities that are any places that used any solar energy where you were?
Definitely. Yeah. And when I was in Bulgaria, I went to some more remote places and they weren't attached to energy at all. I stayed in one place that was completely off the grid. And the way that they worked with that is they had one solar panel that we could use to charge our phones and things like that and turn on the internet for about 1 hour every day. I also learned that there were some places when they built their houses, would build their houses with the sun in mind. So they would use something called passive solar, where they would build their house. So a lot of the sun would come in during the day to actually help heat their home. And often they would have a tree in front of that place too. So in the wintertime, sun could come through. There wouldn't be any leaves blocking. And then in the summertime, the leaves would come out and then create shade over the big window that they had created. So there are so many ways to use the sun.
Absolutely. If you've never tried building a solar cooker before, we encourage you to do that. You would need some type of box, a shoe box or a pizza box is really good. Some black construction paper, some aluminum foil, some plastic wrap, and you can actually build your own solar cooker, take it outside, set it down and roast your own marshmallow or melt some chocolate. Nice. And I'm telling you right now, hot chocolate sounds really good to me. It's, can I tell you, it's cold out here. I think my toes are still burning, which we know that that's a good thing.
Yeah,
but great question about solar energy. And I like that you're caring about your future. Thanks for sharing that. We had time for just a few more, Miss Zimmerman.
Okay, we have one more from Oak Grove, and then we've had a couple in the chat, and then Miss Rushing is up next. So Oak Grove, what's your last question?
Okay, so maybe speak up. Maybe you could use more electric cars and hybrids, so you use less gas, which causes exhaust to make the sky less clear.
Wow. So we've gone from turning off lights to now talking about keeping the sky clear by having less pollution, just like regular pollution, car pollution, smoke pollution. I will tell you that the people in Minnesota are very eager to live freely out here and use less energy and live off the land and enjoy the resources that Mother Earth has given to us. So I think the idea of electric cars and all these new ideas that will help us save the earth for your kids and your grandchildren are great ideas to think about. Thanks for sharing that. I'll have to talk to Mr. Jones and see if we can get an electric car anytime in the future.
All right, Miss Rushing's class.
Hey there, I have Joshua, and he has an idea of just something he can do at home to help reduce light pollution. So, Joshua?
So basically sometimes I forget to like do things, and I was thinking you could like set like just like alarm to like dim your lights so you remember to dim your lights.
I love that. And Joshua, I'm that type of person too. I forget to do things. And I even forget sometimes to turn lights off in rooms. So maybe that's something we can all do. Remember, it just takes one person to create something really exciting. And if you were to do this and work with alarms to turn lights on and off, maybe a sibling or someone else that you live with or near would do the same thing. And it only takes a few of us to do that. So thanks for sharing. Now, Miss Leanne, did you say that we had a few questions in the chat?
We had one question in the chat, and it was actually the last person who has their hand raised. It's Amanda from Kentucky. And in the chat, they put, what kind of fish are in the lake you're standing on?
Yeah, so I'm learning this too. So I'm going to tell you three fish that I know that live in this lake that tried to bite my hook yesterday. The walleyes, which are very mild white fish, kind of. We had that last night. The tulibies, and then also we found some perch. But what other fish might we find here?
Sure. We've got some really large fish as well, such as the northern pike and the lake sturgeon, which can grow 5-6 feet long. They're huge fish. This time of year, one of the types of ice fishing is known as spear fishing. And I've got a neighbor that goes out every day to spearfish and cuts a big hole in the ice, and he watches sometimes these huge northern pike swim by underneath. And he hasn't caught a lake sturgeon yet this winter, but some very, very large fish here, and very important fish as well that go all the way back when the Ojibwe peoples lived here, and the indigenous folks, they would often spear sturgeon in places like below the Whitewater Rapids of Kettle Falls. And so the different types of species are very important to different groups of people all seasons here at Voyageurs National Park.
Moss, I know that the walleye was important to you yesterday.
Sure was.
Because you caught this beautiful fish, but then what did you do last night with this fish?
With this fish, yes, I said thank you to this fish. It was really exciting. It was actually the first fish I've ever caught while ice fishing. I'm so glad you got to be there for it. And then we took it to a friend's house, and he helped us clean the fish. So take off the skin and the scales, and then we breaded it up and cooked it and ate this fish that I had caught. It was so exciting.
It was, and I noticed that you sort of just looked at the fish and talked about how earlier today it had been alive, but it was now giving you sustenance and energy. And I love that you were thanking the fish for having this relationship, if you will. This very nice. Thanks for that question. And how are we doing, Miss Leanne?
We have one more person with their hand raised, and then we have one more in the chat. So.
All right, we will go with those two last questions.
So if you were wanting to fish, there, would you have to have a fishing license? And
Yeah,
like at what time? And what time like should you fish?
Yeah,
during the
so I
day?
can answer that one. So if you're going to ice fish, or if you're going to do any type of fishing here, you're going to have a license. So my husband and I went to a local store and we told them we wanted to fish for 24 hours, and we got a license there. I heard from some amazing fishermen yesterday who allowed us to use their hut that dawn and dusk are really good times to catch fish when you're ice fishing here. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, that's very true. And even in the summertime as well, you get that change of lighting that happens at those moments in the day, beginning of the day and the end of the day. And that's a typical feeding time for a lot of fish and a lot of animals for that matter. The wild kingdom, if you will, all kinds of species. That is a very common time to feed.
It's actually a reference to my favorite word, or one of my favorite words, which is crepuscular. And crepuscular means most active at dawn and dusk.
Yeah.
Nice. So I
word.
am not crepuscular because I'm not most active at dawn or dusk. I have most of my energy just during the day, but that's a great question. And Leanne, I think we had one last one.
One last one from
Thank
the
you
chat.
so much.
You're very welcome.
If there is an emergency when you are ice fishing, how do you get help? That's from Katrina Davis.
Well, Mark, if we have an emergency while ice fishing, right now we are together. And we're not very far from the visitor center or for the dock. So I would think the most important thing would be is not panic. Now that sounds a little bit easier than said, right? But I think not panic and try to get near to the ice where you can pull yourself back up and then get into some type of warm place very quickly, because we are at risk out here, even today, from hypothermia. We've had our noses uncovered for a while and sometimes our fingers. So hopefully we'll never get in that situation. But if we do, be very smart and be as calm as you can.
That's a great question. You know, one of the things to keep safe is to prepare ahead of time to be safe, to dress in layers of warm clothing like we've done so today. I'm wearing a stocking hat right now instead of this colder flat hat that I normally wear as a ranger, just so I can keep a little warmer. But also, you know, checking the weather before we go out to ice fish or ski or snowshoe or snowmobile. Checking the weather ahead of time is a good idea to see if any storms are coming, which we have one coming later today. These are all good things to do in advance to stay safe as well. So safety happens before you go and enjoy an activity, and during and after as well.
Absolutely. Miss Zimmerman, I'm not sure if I can get to my PowerPoint now. I'm going to try to turn it on and see if I'm on the, can you tell me which
You are on your connection slide.
I'm going to
Now
keep
you're on-
moving.
You just moved to the thank you slide.
Okay, so let me go back to the flip slide for just a moment. Is that what you see right now?
Now, what? There it is.
Okay,
Now we're on the
so students, what we want you to do is we want you to think about how we can save the dark skies where you live and how you can help us solve this engineering design challenge. We want you to share it on this flip code. So I have my teachers right now that are going to drop that into the chat window. Teachers, as soon as you get that in the chat window, would you go ahead and write that down? We're going to ask, I have it set for 2 minutes, so we can have students share their ideas for up to 2 minutes with the Voyageurs Conservancy and with the Voyageurs National Park. And I would encourage, if you've already shared, that you do it again so we can have it on video, because my eyes are frozen shut almost, so I didn't get to see everything. But we want just thank you for being here today. We also want to thank you for just this great year so far of Crossing America Live. Teachers, if you haven't seen some of our other episodes, we ask you to go to the website that you see on your screen right now, expeditionsineducation.org/4th grade, and you will find over 145 different videos and opportunities to share. I want to thank Ranger Mark and Moss. And behind the scenes back here, my husband, Steve, that you guys have met before, and also Breanna Trieg, who is the go-getter behind the Voyageurs Conservancy and the reason that we're actually here today. She brought us out here. I want to thank you for making opportunities to help solve world problems, because we know that you're the ones that are going to be able to do that. And above all things, we're going to encourage you again to be a good human, be kind to one another, listen to one another, speak up for those who can't speak for themselves. So on behalf of Expeditions in Education, the Voyageurs Conservancy, and Voyageurs National Park, this is Dr. Drizzle and her frozen penguins, and we're out of here. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.